Hey guys, how's it going? All right, so in the last video, I talked a lot about being a beginner. Now, the problem a lot of times with being a beginner is that you've never talked to random strangers, never talked to a girl, and now all of a sudden you're expected to go out and approach a lot. Now, the problem with that is that you're running on a lot of false beliefs oftentimes if you've never approached a random stranger before. You're running on beliefs that were taught to you by society. So the main thing is to kind of just weed this stuff out. All right, and if I were to give you every fucking strategy under the sun, it would just be too much for a beginner, and it's so tough for a beginner to start approaching to begin with. So making the singular goal of approaching the main goal helps out a lot. Not to mention too, if I were to try to explain a concept like we're gonna get into today, it would not make any fucking sense to you. If I was to try to tell you to do all these things I'm about to tell you guys to do, it would be tough for a beginner to start doing this. It's just stacking on way too much, especially for somebody that's having such a difficult time approaching to begin with. However, you're now in an intermediate. You know what it looks like for a girl like you. You can kind of get the underlying understanding of why a girl rejects you. You do something and you perturb a girl and you know to back off. Maybe you do something and it makes her feel uncomfortable and you see it in her face. Maybe not 100%, but you see that she's not exactly happy. Maybe now you're not so in your head, maybe more in the present. Maybe you can now actually listen to a girl a little bit. Maybe now you're not have so much white noise going on in front of you because you did so many approaches. So now you're starting to get more comfortable. All right, you're getting really quick and easy improvements. Now up to this point, from beginner to intermediate, your game is gonna get good really fast in comparison from intermediate to mastery. Intermediate to mastery is a completely different ballpark, but from beginner to intermediate, approaching was all you needed to get from one spot to the other. All you needed was approaching. Now, if you guys are somebody that wasn't intermediate before, and you're starting to get back into the game, maybe after a girlfriend, unfortunately, you have to go back through the beginner route. You have to go out and approach again because you have to get your momentum back up. If you're focusing again on the stuff that intermediates have to focus on, it's tough for you to also focus on this and approach at the same time. You're trying to build back an old habit and you built up a lot of anti-momentum by being out of the game for a while. So if you are out of the game and you're getting back in, start off as a beginner. Take the ego out of the equation, jump back in as a beginner, make it easy for yourself. Your only goal is to approach and learning to approach again and interact with others without all those negative mindsets you build up from not approaching. To this point, it was easy to get results doing one thing. Now that's the problem. Most people think that I just approached from beginner to intermediate. I should be getting better and better results. I should still be improving. Oh no, I'm approaching a lot and I'm not improving. I must be the best there is. This must be the peak of how good I can get. Now that's stupid. And I say this with a warm heart because I thought this at one point too. Until I started seeing people that were better than me. Until I started pushing myself to improve. And so I pushed and eventually I found it. So I'm helping you guys with finding it yourselves.
Yeah, I confess, Father, I confess, 'cause I've been living wrong.
Now, like I said, you have to be intelligent about the way you practice. Now, the problem is that most people, they get in their egos. Ego is very seductive in the way that it can kind of worm its way back into your personality. Now, as a beginner, a lot of times ego plays a role in stopping somebody from approaching because you can tell yourself, oh, I'm not a creepy guy like that because I don't approach. I'm not one of those weirdos because the only people that approach are weirdos, right? They're guys that are apathetic. I'll hold that door open for a girl any day of the week. I'll lean back on my heels and wait for Sarah from work to come and hit on me. That's an ego. However, this is an ego of a different type. Ego has a way of worming its way into you. An ego is essentially there to protect you from what you think that you are flawed in and you can't improve. What I find an ego is that it's meant to protect you from the outside world. It's meant to protect your insecurities. So what such insecurities are there? Oh, I can't get that 10 out of 10. Maybe you want to convince yourself that you're this amazing godlike figure, maybe that you're bigger than you are. And you find it helps you out to have a lot of confidence when you approach a girl. So you build an ego instead of real confidence to protect you and prop that up. And you find that works with some girls. Now here's some common ego tropes that I see a lot of people taking on. Number one, the natural game trope. Now what I find is that people, when they're trying to do more game techniques and they stack more and more, the problem is that you guys are doing too much at the same time. Or maybe you don't see immediate improvements because intermediate to master is about slow improvements. It takes time. And you guys don't usually see the massive amounts of improvement in, let's say, like a month's time sometimes. Sometimes you can, like if you have like training or you just fall upon the right puzzle piece, sometimes you make massive results. For me, one of the biggest like intermediate to mastery kind of things I ever did was eye contact. Second I started doing that, my game leapt another level. When I started practicing godlike game, where I started getting really confident and I actually started believing in myself, and when I started actually feeling happy, my game again leapt. But for the most part, going from intermediate to mastery is about 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%, improvement, improvement, improvement. Oh, that mindset sucks, that mindset sucks, that mindset sucks, that mindset sucks, until it actually becomes a part of you. Then from there, move to more of an advanced level. With natural game, what I find oftentimes is that when you try to stack on stuff that's not congruent to you, it makes it tough to get in the zone and be natural. So generally speaking, girls don't like you. But in order for you to improve, you have to do things that are uncomfortable. You do. So 1 or 2 things at a time is perfectly fine. But oftentimes what happens is that people are like, I'm gonna stop improving because every time I try to add new stuff to my game drops. But that's just you trying something new. It's you trying something that's unnatural for you, that's not a part of your personality. Now, the trick is that you do it long enough to where it becomes natural, to where it becomes a part of you, to where it actually becomes a habit as opposed to something you have to actively think about. So that's the problem with a lot of people I see who practice natural game. This is more the mindset you guys want to take on. The next one is that game is all about the numbers. It's all about getting a lot of sets in at a time. Again, it's 1%, 1%, 1%, whereas you had really big, easy chunks where it was easy for you to improve, where like in a year's to 2 years' time, you made a lot of improvements really fast. Now the improvements come a little bit slower and you're impatient. So instead of thinking and letting yourself be sucky for a while, trying new stuff, instead you tell yourself the game is a numbers game because you don't see those massive improvements like you did previous. What you don't understand is that game from beginner intermediate will be a lot slower and a lot less straightforward than it was previous. Like intermediate to advanced game is a lot tougher. It takes a lot more steps. So whenever you guys are here, ultimately, just know that you have to think creatively, and it does take a lot more time. Sometimes, like I said, there's big leaps and bounds, but don't fall back in your ego where you it's a numbers game. There's no way I can improve, so you can kind of relax off the fact that you can make improvements. There is nothing but improvements in this. You're not gonna tell me you can't improve your eye contact. You can't tell me you can't improve your confidence. You can't tell me that you can't improve the way that you use your tone, the way you use your pauses. When somebody is saying something like a shit test, and instead of flinching and getting emotional about it, do you get emotional in your body when you have a shit test? If you do, that's something you need to work on. Or maybe it's the fact that you're more grounded. Maybe it's that you're more of a masculine guy. Maybe it's the fact that when you say something, you fucking mean it, and it actually kind of backs you up. Maybe it's when a girl wants to go home with you, you don't feel needy or you want her. There's more improvements you can make than I can actually fit into a 10-hour video. There are so many improvements in game that you can make. It's absolutely ridiculous when I hear the fact that this stuff is a numbers game, or that this matters, that matters. There's so many fucking improvements, it's ridiculous. Drop the ego, don't allow yourself to fall into this. The more you practice, the more you go out and you practice intermediate game, the more that you practice game the exact same way, the more years you put into this, and you do the exact same type of game, you do the same approach, same eye contact, same this, same that. You're never approaching in a way that's empathetic. You're not reading the girl in a certain way, and you're not writing down field reports. You're ingraining a level of game, and you're making it harder for you to get out of this because you're building habits around this game style that's intermediate, that's not as good as it could be. So when somebody comes around or you try to come back and fix this stuff, it's harder to uproot and pull out because now it's a hard-earned habit, and it's tough. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Now, a lot of these guys who built egos, they're afraid to deviate from what worked because they don't want to look like an idiot. Because up to this point, they built up a good personality and ego around their game and the way they look. Now, if they were to do what I tell them to do, they'd have to look like an idiot at times, which would be very painful for a person because he has to go through a new ego death. And the first ego death from starting game to now was pretty tough. Do you want to do it twice? Fuck no. But if you want to prove, you have to do this. You have to push yourself in a new realm. You have to think critically and try new stuff out. All right, don't stick to this. Don't fall into a character or an ego. Egos are weak, especially in game. The best at game are egoless. They don't have an ego. They just are. All right, when you're building an ego around your personality, it makes you rigid and it doesn't make you a fluid structure. Fuck your ego, break it. How do you guys think critically? Now, as I said before, and I've said many times, field reports. Now, use this to look for sticking points. Look at my videos, look at other advanced guys' videos, watch their videos and listen to what they talk about. Is it eye contact? Are you qualifying a lot during set? Do you talk fast? Do you not talk in a masculine way? When you joke, are you joking for the girl or are you joking for yourself? Are you self-amused and legitimately self-amused, or are you faking self-amused? When you talk to somebody, are you actually listening to what they're saying, or do you hear white noise still? Do you give the girl a chance to chase you? Are you chasing the girl instead? Are you the buyer or the seller? If you guys need things to improve on, look at my fundamentals first and foremost. The fundamentals are very important. If you're missing any of these pieces, start practicing those. Now, like I said earlier, I mentioned this as a part of the natural thing. You only want to practice on 1 or 2 things at a time, 2 at most. Because if you practice more, you overload yourself. Now me, I leave little stuff all over the place. So for example, I made this for a student the other day. Basically, it's laser eye contact always, put on my screen. Or what I'll do is I'll have a student write it down on their arm. So then every time they're in a set, oh yes, right, this is what I'm supposed to be practicing tonight. Or for me, I'll write something different. Maybe you'll make a different screen. Make reminders for yourself though when you're out and about. Because when you're out talking to girls, sometimes it gets easy to forget and you fall into old habits. Make sure this is in the forefront of your mind. Make sure that you know this is what you're hammering home and you're getting rid of. All right, if it's laser eye contact, it's laser eye contact. When you're out there, be like, okay, I'm gonna approach with laser eye contact. I'm gonna knock it the fuck out of the park. You're gonna have to be creative at this point. Not everything is gonna be straightforward. All right, before it was easy. What do? You approach and you improve. Now at this point, you're gonna approach. Improvement is up to you. All right, so something that I used to do would be handicapping myself. So for example, let's say I was having a hard time pulling girls from clubs or pulling the trigger. Let's say that my problem was making out with girls. Or, let's say my problem was pulling girls from the club. All right, so instead of me doing something else, my handicap for the night is see how many girls I can pull out of the club before I pull a girl at the end of the night. So how many girls can I walk out the door? Cool, I walked 3 girls at the door, worked on it tonight, did a great job, had a hard time pulling before. Now I handicap myself, now it's easy to pull. Maybe I found that I was too much of a nice guy in my sets. So instead for a week or a month, I'm gonna focus on swinging the pendulum. I'm gonna focus on being more of an edgy character, more of a Californication type of person or a Tucker Max, somebody that's a little more edgy. So then when it comes down to it at the end of the month, instead of me being a nice guy, I tried out the opposite. Now I find my middle ground. Now I can actually use that part of my personality because I practiced it. When you're out and about, this is not always the stuff you think about in the forefront of your mind. Now, like I said, when you're out and about, focus on 1 or 2 things. When you're writing field reports, I want you to be really extensive with them. The way that I always explain it is that when you're out and about, you're a frat boy. When you're home with your pen and paper, you're a scientist. You're writing down, trying to figure out new ways to improve. You're thinking about this methodically. What is the next thing you can do? How could you have done a better job? How would your 10 out of 10 pickup version of yourself done better today? What could you have done better to improve? Would he have done what you did today? Or would he have done something differently? How could he have had more fun during the course of the night? Let's say that you got rejected repeatedly and you just got sadder and sadder. How could you have made it fun for yourself? Maybe how could your 10 out of 10 version had more fun with the night and instead flipped it around to make his emotions even happier and happier, to build his state, to build his energy, make him happier. Control his emotions. Now, like I said, momentum is still very important. You still have to go out consistently because you have to be able to see the back-to-back feedback from the world. And if you're going out 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 1 time a week, it does become difficult for you to keep finding those improvements. So make sure this is consistent effort. You don't have to go out for a long time. You can go out for short periods, but you have to make it consistent because this is about momentum. The society around you, they're not approaching. It pushes on you and teaches you subconsciously that it's not okay for you to approach. And that stuff you have to uproot. Not to mention that when you don't go out a lot, it's hard to get rid of the negative mindsets that you built up through society. And as we all know, that stuff can be very seedy, and not to mention you can start building an ego again. If you're not going out, you're likely to start building up an ego again, and it's tough to uproot. All right, guys, I really hope this helped out. If you guys have any questions, leave them below. And with that being said, peace out.
False with the dialogue, modest with depression, honorably discharged, admired as a veteran. Regardless of anything you've heard, he's absolutely fascinated by your choice of words. And he is what lives in our shadows, a voice that we